Welcome to the 517 In Your Business podcast. Here's your host, Mary Gaida.
Welcome back to 517 In Your Business. Our monthly conversation with Eric Hanna happens today. Eric is an employee benefits consultant with Brown & Brown. And before we get into it, Eric, I have to say, 517 Business Magazine ran our August cover story on health benefits, and you were the guy. You were the guy we went to. And I think that's not nothing. That means this stuff is finally being treated like a real business instead of an HR footnote, right?
Oh, well, thank you so much. It really meant a lot to be in it and be included in it. And then on the cover was sort of, blew my mind, to be honest. And and I love that the topic is really, rising around a critical business issue, right?
Absolutely.
And not only rising, but then in the context of growth, like there are articles about regional growth and other cool things happening. And sometimes insurance is a little bit of like, it feels contracting, but in that context of growth was super cool. So it meant a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in our, I think, year of speaking on the podcast, I now will quote you in conversations with people. I'll say, well, Eric Hanna says. So,
it's super cool.
Yeah.
Super cool. Yeah.
Awesome. The information you provide is crucial. So let's kind of keep that conversation going. Last month, we talked about transparency in health plans, how business leaders can see actually how employees are using their plan. So once they've left, what is the next step?
Yeah, you nailed it. The key around transparency and the phrase that I've been using more often is you can't manage what you can't see, right?
Right.
So how do we see behind the curtain a little bit? Now, the next step is incentive alignment in our three pillars. So, and while we're talking about this today a little bit in the, employee benefits and health insurance context, the concepts actually transfer across any vendor partner relationship with a business. So I'm excited to get into it a little bit. I thought I'd start with a story, and hopefully it kind of helps illustrate sort of where we're headed in this episode. So a while back, I was buying a bottle of rum for a friend of mine's birthday. And now I'm not a rum guy. I tend to be a bourbon guy. So I know a little bit about bourbon, to know enough to be dangerous, so to speak, but don't know much on rum.
Okay.
And so I walked into On the Rocks in East Lansing, and On the Rocks is kind of one of those places, like if you know kind of thing.
Yeah.
Very cool place. And I spoke to one of the owners about it and letting them know what I was looking for and really didn't know where to start. And so he asked me my budget and a couple other questions. And then he said something I still kind of think about, which is, he told me straight up, look, I get paid $5 to $10 no matter what bottle you buy. So it doesn't really matter to me whether you spend this $50 bottle or this $150 bottle. But if I were buying the bottle, I'd go with the $75 bottle. And he gave me his rationale. And honestly, that changed my energy immediately.
Yeah. So what did you end up buying?
Oh, so I went with the $75 bottle. And, because at that point, it made sort of the decision quicker and easier because I trusted the recommendation slightly more because, my buying decision wasn't tied to any advantage, to him. So, and I just sort of felt like it was more about my intention than any other outside, influence. So,
right.
That's really what we're talking about around aligned incentives, what it actually feels like. And sometimes we're uncomfortable talking about fees and fee disclosures. And so I thought we could highlight that today. So
I think that's great. And to be clear, he just told you his own margin as part of his recommendation.
Right. He disclosed it up front. That wasn't, I think maybe he saw my hesitation, not knowing whether to go, one way or another. And it earned my trust immediately. So anytime, we're as business leaders, paying for advice or service, the real question is, does their upside go up when my buying decision changes or the price goes up?
Right. And that transparency means so much, right?
Right. That's right. Now, in another context, if we want to flip it, think about your server at your favorite restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you can almost guarantee you'll get 3 questions. Right. Anything from the bar tonight? Can I start you with an appetizer?
Yeah.
And then at the end, before the bill comes, have you saved any room for dessert? All right. And, it's not because the server is a bad person or the restaurant's manipulating anything. It's just part of hospitality and service. We've come to expect that, right?
Right.
But the server might be motivated to ask those questions in part because the tip is a % of the bill.
Right.
So, and look, we live in a tip culture in the US, so I'm not judging that as an example, but just using it to illustrate the point that
Absolutely.
it's not about scandal or people, it's about structure and awareness.
Yes. And we've got one relationship where they get paid the same no matter what the buying decision is, and another where the comp is tied to the decision.
Yeah, you got it. And here's where it gets real for business leaders. Every party that touches your health plan gets paid somehow, naturally, right? But not all of those payment structures are built the same way. So let's take, the insurance carriers or what's called a third party administrator, or sometimes referenced as a TPA. Those are the two most common ways a plan actually gets administrated, right? The claim comes in from the provider, it gets paid. That's administration of a plan. So a lot of fully insured carriers get paid a little more as claims and premium go up. So their model is tied to the bill growing. Now, a TPA, in contrast, usually charges a flat fee to administer the plan no matter how it's designed or how claims run. So one gets rewarded as costs rise. One is focused on managing cost and isn't tied to plan design decisions by the business. So that's a little more granular in the insurance, context.
Right. So we're talking about the flat fee is the version of the rum guy,
That's right.
and the other one is the restaurant server.
Yes. Same pattern, just different approach to how they get paid.
So how does a business executive even start to untangle all of that?
Yeah, fair question. And honestly, depending on the timing and the current arrangement, most of it's sort of happening behind the scenes, and we sort of just assume everybody's getting paid and it's fine if they continue to work on our behalf. But
Right.
Your broker or benefits consultant really is the key person that understands how how your program works, or can provide the intel or scouting report, as I call it, in some context. So and frankly, including their own comp structure. The comp structure in the broker space isn't one size fits all, and quite often it can be tied to a percent of the insurance premium, right? Structured like the
Right.
tip example. And other broker consultants have a fee-based structure, kind of like the rum example. So, to drill that down a little deeper, if people are interested, I actually, in my latest Benefits Blitz newsletter on LinkedIn, I break down all the players and what some of the pay structures are in really plain, approachable language. But, for our episode today, here's the ask. And it's kind of a low stakes one.
Okay.
If you're the person who owns the decision at your company, go ask directly to your vendor partners, how are you compensated on my account? And does that change if my premium or costs go up or down?
And that feels like that would be a question that people are afraid to ask.
Yeah, sometimes, like I said before, it's a little uncomfortable to ask how somebody's compensated. There's some like stigma around, how much do you make kind of sort of questions, but
Right.
I don't think it should be. Yeah. And actually, there's laws around transparency in the insurance. We're required to disclose our compensation. So it's really not a secret. But back to the rum example, or rum guy. I don't know how we started calling him the rum guy, but back to the rum guy, he answered it before I even asked. He just saw the hesitation and thought, oh, well, I'll just disclose this and get that off the table. And, the question doesn't vilify anyone, but it's
Right.
worth considering if the structure supports your goals or maybe theirs, right? And so,
Absolutely.
like we talked about in the open, these models cross service areas. Construction is similar. There's a model in construction that the contractor gets paid based on the cost of the project, and there's another that's a flat direct fee. No big deal. Either way is fine. It can work depending on the situation and circumstances. But again, knowing what it is and what the levers are that change it is kind of the awareness part.
Right. So this is a 1 week homework assignment for everyone listening, right?
Yeah, let's do it. Going back to the rum guy for a second again. He didn't care what I spent.
Yeah.
And that's when
Yeah.
trust was immediately built. So that's the whole test. Not whether someone's, nice or whether they know their stuff. It's whether their incentive is pointed at my outcome as the decision maker, or potentially theirs is influenced by that decision.
Right. So to wrap up, outside of maybe that now I'm kind of thinking about getting a bottle of rum, what is the main takeaway here?
Yeah, here's the main thing. When incentives are aligned, everything kind of gets easier. And back to the rum example, when he disclosed that, I immediately sort of dropped my own guard.
Yeah.
And you stop second guessing recommendations. You stop wondering what's not being said. So understanding how the system, particularly insurance, pays itself is a critical part of healthcare affordability more broadly, but certainly if I'm a decision maker paying the bill, I want to know how individuals or service providers are getting paid. And to be honest, it's partly why I built my practice around strategy instead of just insurance placement, because I wanted my incentive to more often look like the rum guys than the servers, from my own perspective. But again, that's just my personal approach to it. So I think it's worth the effort. So give it a shot.
Absolutely. And if nothing else, go visit the rum guy at On the Rocks and tell him you and I sent you.
Heck yeah, go see my guy. They're great.
Eric, cheers to that. Thank you for some more great conversation. I'm looking forward to our next chat.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks for listening to the 517 In Your Business podcast. Get to know local businesses better by reading 517 Business Magazine. Get your subscription at 517mag.com/subscribe.